My sister Emma died in the Dunblane school shooting back in 1986.
She just was so kind for all her small age.
It's important to do this trip with Jack and Alison. She and many others managed to change the UK forever, brought about gun controls, and there's never been another mass shooting at a school ever since.
We want to go out there and show positivity to these students.
I think to give the families hope that you can move on, and I think it's that, to just give them hope.
The March for Their Lives was this incredible, massive moment where everyone came together and there was so much momentum and it built up to this moment. And I think it's really important for us to come over after that to help keep that momentum up, to keep this in everyone's mind so that we've got the best chance of this never happening again.
We had a huge amount of support. The families all kept together. I hope they're getting it over here.
The most important thing is that something positive comes out of something that was so terrible. Something positive happened after Dunblane. We changed everything, and that's what we hope can happen here as well.
Nicholas was, he was a beautiful human being. He had purpose, he had goals in life, and they were unfortunately taken short. They were cut short when he was killed.
I think with a death like that, the first thing that comes to your mind and your heart is why? Exactly. Why? And I'm very curious to hear from you. How
did the UK accomplish a total ban on guns to the population?
One of the hugely important things for the UK was having an end goal. It's a much bigger scale, and it'll just take longer.
Okay, so guns are banned in the UK. You know, so does that make you more safe or less safe? Or do you think about that, or it's about that?
More safe.
More safe. For us, see, I think it's so easy for us. I know for a categoric fact, there's never been another school shooting in the UK.
But I think it is so positive, and I think it's so inspiring to, use the horrific thing that happened in Dunblane to kind of give strength to people who are finding a different response to that kind of horrific event.
I think what's really come across from these students is that although it's been a horrible thing what's happened to them at Parkland, that's not what Parkland's going to be remembered for. Parkland's going to be remembered for the students that have stood up and spoken out for themselves afterwards. They're so articulate, they're so driven, motivated, they've got such a fire in their belly, they're just not willing to go back down.
It must be really tough for you though.
Given what you've been through, but also to hear what they've been through.
Yeah. More recent, quite harrowing for you.
It's emotional, but I think you do still look on it as a positive.
Yeah.
It's not a negative that you are worrying about. It is a positive, and of course it's emotional, but it always will be.
What was the first step? How did you start to build?
I think there were two main aspects of the support that really were the reasons that it was so successful. The first one would have been that it's all grassroots movements. It's not top-down legislation that happens, it's bottom-up. The second part that I think is really important for everyone in America is that it was one voice that was calling for change. So with the opposition that you guys have got, you have one opponent, the NRA essentially, and that's one very strong voice, and there's been thousands of other fragmented voices all shouting for the same thing but not quite exactly the same thing, and it's all the message is getting lost. Whereas in the UK we had one voice. It was the Snowdrop campaign, it was the gun control network, and with this one voice we were like, this is what we want, and we're not going to stop until we've got to this end point.
That's a struggle to keep a message so consistent. In most cases they were like, we are children, we don't want to die. But these kids were able to put a movement together and be all over the country doing speeches, and all of their messages, regardless. Some had a more personal approach to it, others more inclusive, but the reality is the message in the end of the day was the exact same.
Bringing in different things that loses the sort of impact of gun control.
We know that the Second Amendment is not unlimited. The Supreme Court's been clear about that.
Right.
We know that assault weapons were banned until 2004, and that the number of mass shootings came down. And when the assault weapons ban ended and wasn't reauthorized, the number of mass shootings went up. The kind of effort that's required here is massive, and the students have started this movement, but it's inspiring for them, I know, to be able to spend time with you, with a family that experienced such loss, and then set about bringing about this really significant change that you made in your country. You refused to take no for an answer is exactly what they want to do.
I think we said when we came, we wanted to bring hope, and that was the main thing.
On Saturday we were marching in Edinburgh too. We had about 300 people outside the US consulate.
A lot of the crowd were made up of people from Dunblane, which I think is one of the most important things we wanted to bring over, that Dunblane is really behind you, 100%, and know that it can be done. It can be done.
I saw that you guys had a petition right after that went to Parliament, and then had legislation passed.
It was called the Snowdrop campaign.
First one was 750,000.
750,000 people.
And like when you talk to all these government officials, to your face, did they seem like they were like behind you guys?
You know immediately who is going to help you and who's not, and you just ignore the ones that are not.
Like the laws that you guys passed in Dunblane about handguns and things like that, I don't think, like personally, that's a feasible thing to happen in America, just because the gun culture is like so ingrained in everyone. And then there's people that are like, you guys are just trying to take away my guns, and like they pull a Second Amendment thing on us.
But we try really hard to just say that we're not taking away your guns. We just want to like ban just a certain type, right? A certain type that's like really not meant for civilian society. And
if we try to take away handguns, that would immediately turn everyone against us. And like that's part of the strategy that we have to take. We have to decide where we're gonna give things up and where we have to push for certain things to get done.
It'll be you that'll do it.
What's happened so far that we've noticed that's been completely different as a result of what happened at Parkland compared to what happened, for example, at Sandy Hook, is the level of engagement of young people. And that's already like the main thing that we'd say is going to be the difference here. The students are incredible.
Oh, it was inspiring to meet them, and you forget how young they are, 16, 17. They are determined. It's not a quick fix, and they appreciate that.
Their reaction is, their plan is, their focus is very simple. You want to say no? Vote him out.
The Prime Minister of the UK said to my dad, he said, it's impossible that we can bring in what you want. It's impossible to do what you're asking us to do. So it was impossible for him to do because he was voted out. A new Prime Minister was brought in and he did it.
And those kids are showing us how it's done.
You say no to them and they're like, I don't accept no for an answer. I won't take no for an answer, and that's going to be the difference.